basically look like dust. I don't even know if you can see them on there, but they look like dust. That's what Bermuda grass seed looks like. Now this is Princess 77, which is a high quality grass seed that replicates sod. Dude, Doc's exhausted. Hey guys, Doc, we're gonna talk about planting Bermuda seed. I'm gonna cover a bunch of different points. I'm also gonna come out, I'll show you why not. We overseeded the green today. This is different, this is a cool season. This is actually dwarf bent and blue creeping. But we're out here, so I grabbed a camera. I'll show you that. We're working in our garden. We got a bunch of different stuff, so hold on. Yesterday we came out and we did an overseed, a cool season overseed on the green. I'm going to show you that later in the video. I'll show you a little bit about the garden that we're doing, the monoculture versus a multiculture. I'll just throw that, and that'll be at the end. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over seeding, or overseeding as a lot of people call it, in the springtime. And I'm going to break this down by categories. So let me just read exactly what I'm going to cover. I'm going to cover the planting windows. In other words, when you should plant grass seed, whether it's Bermuda. I'll even talk about cool season. How deep you should plant grass seed. There's a bunch of different myths about that. Pre-emergence. What effect do pre-emergence have? Cool season versus warm season grass. Fertilizer. We're going to talk about aerating, scarifying, and dethatching. Is that something you should do when you're seeding? And then we'll talk about watering. So I'm going to knock out those subjects one by one. Just for the heck of it, we had cameras out here yesterday. We did a spike aeration on the green. We did an overseed. We've been playing with the garden. I'll put that stuff at the end. So before I start this video, I want to cover one subject that's real important that can get confusing to people. And that's understanding, should I overseed a Bermuda lawn? This is probably the most important and asked question on this subject for Bermuda lawn owners. And the answer is no, you probably should not overseed. Why is that? If at any point you had sod put down, so 15 years ago, you had sod installed at the house, someone did, and you bought it, and now it's a crappy lawn, you probably should not overseed. I've done this tons and tons of times. You can go back and look at our videos. Matter of fact, I just posted up a video about fixing an ugly lawn. That's a good video to watch. We're taking a lawn that's 80% weeds, but was Bermuda sod 15 years ago, and we're bringing it back by killing all the weeds and promoting that Bermuda. Bermuda is very invasive, and if you treat it right, it'll just fill up a lawn in one season. We've done that with the world's worst lawn. We've done that with the test patch, almost solid weeds, and we brought them back to pure Bermuda. So if at any point you had sod, you probably shouldn't overseed. You should go watch that other video, which is called Fix Your Ugly Lawn, and learn how to bring that lawn back. Now, let's say you just have a really crappy lawn, you got a ton of dirt, and you're like, I just want to seed. So if you do want to seed, and you want to match your sod, the problem is that sod is hybrid. And what does that mean? It means that the seeds that it produces are sterile. They don't grow. So you cannot buy the same seed that comes in sod. What you can buy is you can buy genetically modified Bermuda grass that's very, very thin, very, very short growing, and looks like a golf course or a sports turf. Now those seeds are expensive. I'm just telling you, they can be per pound. It's nothing to pay, you know, $10 to $30 a pound for that Bermuda grass seed. Not a bag, a pound. The big mistake that people make is that they run down to Lowe's or Home Depot, or they go online and they order Bermuda seed, and it's a bag of seed and it's cheap. It's 10, 20 bucks. That's common Bermuda. And common Bermuda looks totally different from sod or hybrid grass. So you don't put common Bermuda seed onto your sod. It's a big mistake that a lot of people make, and I'm sure someone will say, hey Doc, somewhere in the comments, someone's going to say, Doc, I made the mistake of putting down common Bermuda grass on my sod. Is there anything I can do? Not really. Once you do that, that's it. There's common and there's whatever. It visually looks different. It grows different. The blades are much different. So I really want to stress that point in here first. When it comes to Bermuda grass, You have to understand there's common Bermuda, which is bigger and thicker, and then there's more of a hybrid or specialty turf type Bermuda seed. In the description below, this video will be on a page. Every video has its own page. And I'll put a bunch of different products on that page. And I think I went on Amazon this morning and I found a couple links to products like Arden 15, Yukon. Sometimes you can find Blackjack. There's a bunch of different those seeds, and I'll put links to them on there that you can order and you can use. I have a bag of Princess 77, and I'll run here in a minute and get that and show that to you. But just understand that point. So now I can go on with the subjects on this video. So first, let's cover the subjects. Planting windows. It's real important to understand that fescue and warm season grasses are different. The majority of seeding on a cool season grass is done in the fall. Yes, you can overseed your existing cool season lawn in the spring, but you have to do it early before the heat moves in, and a certain percentage of that overseeding will survive into the summer. But typically the seeding is done in the fall. Soil temperature for cool seasons, I'm talking soil temperature, needs to be 60, 65 degrees, somewhere around there typically for good germination, depending on the grass. If you have a different type of grass, just read and it'll tell you what the germination it is, or you can Google it and it'll tell you. When it comes to warm season grasses, it changes. When it comes to warm season grasses, we have a certain window that we need to plant in. And that window is typically late spring or early summer. Why is that? Well, it needs to establish roots because that's how it repopulates itself. But it also needs a minimum 65 degrees soil temperature, but really 70 to 75 degrees is the soil temperature that you're looking for. Now that's soil temperature. So to get that soil temperature, you have to have daytime highs constantly in the 80s. Does that make sense? So for me, where I am in Georgia, that's probably what? Getting into, this is March, I'll be April, probably into May. By the time May rolls around, I'll be touching into the 80s consistently, and I can seed or overseed May, June. You can actually do it all summer long as you have irrigation. So yes, you can seed warm season while it's hot. It likes the heat. That's what it needs. So those are the two windows. Warm season grasses, that late spring, early summer when temperatures are warm. Cool season, you overseed in the fall, you seed in the fall or overseed a little bit in the spring. So those are your times. Next subject, let's talk about how deep you plant a seed. Talk to any agronomist that knows anything. Go to Google and type it in, how deep to plant seeds. The recommended depth on a seed is 2 to 3 times the height or the size of the seed. So if you're planting a squash seed that's that big, you might go 1, 2, you might plant it about 1 inch deep in the ground. Seeds come with their own natural energy inside that little shell. And that's the amount of energy they have to push up through the soil. So if I take a Bermuda seed and I plant it 2 or 3 inches deep in the soil, there's probably a good chance the energy is going to die out before it has a chance to actually reach the surface. You got that? So we're going to talk about that a little bit later when it comes to aerating and some myths that are out there. But you would not come out and throw seed and then put 3 inches of soil. If you're going to put seed out, it needs to be 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch deep. That's all you sow seed, just barely into the ground, just a little bit. Pre-emergence. What about pre-emergence? If you plan to overseed or if you plan to seed a lawn, you don't put pre-emergent down. If you do have pre-emergent, typically the window, read your pre-emergent and it'll say on there, it'll talk about, the label will talk about seeding. Typically the window is 90 days, about 3 months. So a pre-emergent will typically last about 3 months. After that time you can seed. So as an example, the good thing about that works out well for Bermuda people, but not necessarily for cool season people. Because Bermuda, I came out here, let's say we come out, let's say March 1st. March 1st I put out my pre-emergent. Well, I've got March, April, and May. I've got 3 months, and the end of May, middle of May, I can start seeding. So it actually works out well. Unfortunately for cool season people, that doesn't work out the same. Pre-emergence stops new cell growth. So what that means is as the root wants to grow, it touches that chemical and it won't grow. No roots, no plant, and it dies off. That's how it works. It doesn't stop germination, it just stops root growth. That's why we don't put pre-emergent on new sod for a full year, and we don't put out pre-emergent on new seed for a full growing season. Got it? That's how pre-emergent affects it. Fertilizer. Should you fertilize? Maybe. I think if you're gonna put down some fertilizer, yes, someone asked about Humichar. Yes, you can put tons of Humichar down. I would probably come out with, depending, you really should get a soil test done, but if you don't have a soil test, maybe get a light coat of the PGF Balanced. Why is that? It's because PGF Balanced is a 10-10-10. If you don't have a soil test, you're kind of guessing anyways. So it's a 10-10-10 you can put out. It has micronutrients, it has iron, and it's all fast release, and that's what you want. Fertilizers aren't going to do any good on new seed if it's not a quick release. So if you plan to seed or overseed, yes, put out a light coat of the Balance, and then once it germinates, then you can come out and put PGF Complete, which is a 4:1:2 ratio or 16:4:8, and then you can hit it with PGF Complete, no problem. Okay, let's talk a little bit about aerating, scarifying, and dethatching. There's a myth out there that you should core aerate your lawn when you're getting ready to seed. Personally, I think that's kind of dumb. No offense, but it just doesn't make sense. If you need to aerate your lawn, then aerate your lawn. It relieves compaction, it allows different things to happen. But the thought process there is that, well, I got a 3-inch hole, and so these seeds are going to fall into some of those holes. Well, what did we just cover? We just covered proper planting depth. So if you think a Bermuda seed is going to fall into a 3-inch hole and somehow magically grow up over the next couple of weeks and emerge, it's not going to happen. It's actually going to die off and rot. Got it? So core aeration is not a smart thing to do when you are seeding or reseeding, unless you need to aerate. In other words, you got hard rock soil and you just want to aerate it, then go out and aerate it. But don't do it for the purpose of seeding. Got it? You understand the difference? If you got hard, crappy soil that needs to be aerated, go ahead and aerate it before you seed. What you can do, you can rent a dethatcher and run a dethatcher over the lawn before you actually put down your seed, but that usually causes a mess. Now, a dethatcher has kind of teeth on it, and the little wires spin around and pull up the thatch. That's going to create a mess when you're trying to seed. So what I prefer is a scarifier. And what is a scarifier? A scarifier doesn't have tongs or teeth that sort of grab the thatch. It has blades, and those blades will actually cut into the soil. Yes, it'll pull up a little bit of the thatch, it'll pull up a little bit, but it'll actually cut little lines in the soil. Down at the beach house, I actually bought one, because there isn't a good rental place close by. So I ordered an electric one. I said, I'm gonna try it. It's a plug-in one, it's a small, cheap electric one. Let me tell you what, that thing kicked butt down there. I did the whole front yard with it. I did the backyard. We did an annual ryegrass seed, and it was fantastic. I'm gonna give it 2 thumbs up for the money. So will you use that a lot? No, but if you're gonna rent it versus buy it, take a look at it, and I'll put it in the description down below. But you know, maybe you loan it out to people. I don't know. I may never use it again. Actually, I will use it because we'll be doing more seeding down there come probably May. We're going to plant warm season grass down there. So when we do that planting down there, I will use that scarifier, that plug-in one, and I'll go back over and I'll do the whole lawn twice, and then I'll do the backyard twice, and then we'll plant our warm season. I may do a mix of Bermuda and Zoysia down there, by the way. We're still planning it out. So that's my recommendation. My recommendation is if you have like all, of course, if you have solid dirt, you probably go ahead and till it and rake it. But if you have just bare spots all over the place, then you're going to want to go ahead and do a scarifier. So what do I do now? Man, we did so much work. I'm just going to throw some stuff up. If you want to watch it. But I think one of the first things I should do is let me show you some of this seed. It's funny because it's actually kind of relative when it comes to grass seed. That's not true with all seeds. But the smaller the grass seed, typically the finer the blade of grass. Let me put up a clip from last year when we were seeding this green, and look at the size of the grass seed. I mean, it literally looks like dust. It's that fine. I mean, you can barely see the seed grains. And what's funny on this video is we actually have some of those grooves that we made with a rake. So next, let me go over here and I'm going to show you a quality Bermuda grass seed and then an annual rye seed. You'll see the difference. All right. So this is actually I think it's Princess 77 right here that I had from last year. And you can see just how fine this grass seed is. This is Bermuda. This is a quality seed. It's like $20-something a pound or whatever. That's what it looks like. This, let me put this right next to it so you can see it. That's annual ryegrass. So this is annual ryegrass seed. You can see the size difference. So one is a warm season, one is a cool season. But typically the finer sort of looking seeds will be smaller and smaller in your warm season. Cooler grass seeds have a tendency to be bigger until you get into stuff like the dwarf variety, which is what we have back here in the green. And that stuff is just super fine. I got my labor department out here. He's digging holes for new plants. So we came out here and we spike aerated the green. We overseeded with that super fine. Now I put down 2 species of dwarfs. One was a blue and one was a bent. Both I believe are creeping, but they're sort of designed for this, and they can be cut down to 1/8 of an inch. So I'll show you that real quick. The other thing we're doing, make sure you click subscribe and follow us, because if you do follow us, you understand when I start talking about a monoculture. I just did a video called Your Soil Sucks, because monocultures, where you only plant one thing, horrible soils. So what we're doing this year on our gardens, let me give you an example. We are using dirt booster compost piles to feed our soils with microbes and fungus and all the nutrients. We're not using any chemical fertilizers, just the dirt booster product. Matter of fact, there's a pile over here. I'll show you in a second. But you can see, so I've got peppers, tomatoes, marigolds, and I'm going to come in here with wildflowers and actually weed seeds. And see all these weeds? We're not going to be pulling any weeds this year. We're just going to kind of let this go back to nature, its own little ecosystem. We're actually going to encourage weed growth. We're going to encourage, I may plant some clover in here. Throw in some clover, I'll throw in some rye. I'll do this tomorrow, there'll be another video tomorrow. But we're also staggering our plants, which is something to help fight some of the airborne fungus from moving plant to plant. So as an example, instead of having all tomatoes all in this section, I'll have tomato, zucchini, tomato, and I'll be staggering all these plants in here this year. Throw in maybe some herbs, throw in some flowers, and throw in some weeds. We're just gonna let it all grow up. It's gonna be kind of cool to watch it. So one thing that is kind of cool is that on these gardens, let me see if I can find a video clip of this, but there are so many earthworms in these gardens. I mean, every scoop has like 4 earthworms inside of it. My son's like, dude, I'm going fishing. I mean, there were just thousands of earthworms inside these gardens. It drives them crazy. But let me show you a trick. So last night, I really couldn't get this pile to activate. We tried, we put it out, we did the tarp method, and I did a little trick. So I came out here this morning early, and I took a Pyrex, and I put it in the microwave, and I got the water just to about boiling. It was like 170 degrees. And I poured that water, we poke a hole in the middle, and I poured that water right down the hole, and I closed it up, and then I covered it, and guess what? Fired up just like that. So let me see what the temperature is now. Now I did that at 6 o'clock this morning, and it's now 12. And let's see what my reading is. Now I'm off to the side where I poured the water. I poured the water down the center, but look at that. 127 degrees. And I got tons of steam coming out. Way off to the side, 122 degrees. I got a bunch of steam coming out of that hole. Linda just got in trouble because she found something dead to roll in. So I'm gonna just trim my hole. I'm gonna trim my hole. This green is a mix between two dwarfs. It's a dwarf creeping bent grass and it's called a true putt creeping bluegrass. So I'm just going to take a little bit of these and just lightly seed. Now let me give you a little tip. Some people say you aerate so that the seed will fall down in the hole. Let me dispel that myth for you. So I got a 3-inch hole, let's say. Basically, it look like dust. I don't even know if you can see them on there, but they look like dust. That seed does not have enough energy to grow out of a 3-inch hole. So if people are telling you to aerate your lawn and put out a fine grass seed because the seed is going to drop in 3 inches and then grow out of a soil after being covered up 3 inches, it's not going to happen. That's not the reason why you aerate. We're aerating this because we got 4 days of rain coming in and I just want to open it up. That's all I'm doing before I overseed this. One of my problems today, besides the damn wildlife, one of my problems today is the wind. The wind is going to carry the seed because it's so light. So I got to get low to the ground and put it out. So anyways, so once you've seeded, the main thing you have to do is you have to keep that seed wet, and I can't stress that enough. So one of the reasons why we did an overseed back here on the green this week is we got 5 days with 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms. Will a thunderstorm wash your seed away? There is that potential, but on the green, we really don't have to work it in because this green is so thick, the seed just goes right into the thatch layer. But you do have to keep it wet. I mean, that's the problem. You got to keep that seed moist, keep that seed moist. And anyways, we had such a long, we had a 12-hour workday yesterday. One reason why you're going to want to click subscribe, which is really cool this year, is we're not using any mulch on our vegetable beds. No wheat straw, no chips, nothing. And what we're doing is we're planting multicultures. So I've come out here today, I've started doing my planting, and what am I going to cover with? I'm going to use ryegrass, I'm going to use wildflowers, we're going to use marigolds. So all this will be raw soil with multiple plants growing out of it. We're not going to pull a single weed this year, no weeding. Just let it all grow. And that's the beneficial thing that Gabe was talking about. Anyways, talk to you later.